Hi, this is episode 38. I want to take on a new topic which I've never covered before, and that is design systems. When I was preparing this for this video and kind of considering what is the first and most fundamental thing that you need to know about design systems, what kept coming up in my mind was the name design systems is not bad. It has the word systems, so I thought we would spend the time in this video to cover how many different kind of ways, and I won't say all the different ways, but to cover how is a design system a system. So my name is Ken and you're watching Mastering UX. Over the years, design systems have become very popular, and I think one of the reasons why design systems have become so popular is that design teams are growing immensely. In fact, Forrester did a study, and they said that 72% of all design organizations or design teams are planning to currently grow in this year. And so with that kind of growth, with the popularity of design, the emphasis on design, people realize that with growth comes new problems and challenges. And one of those challenges is, how do you scale effectively? How do you scale in a way that still maintains cohesiveness? Different minds, different thinkings, different philosophies, divisions. And so design systems are one way to help alleviate some of the challenges that an organization might face in the midst of growing their teams. Design systems have kind of come out of a lot of different methods and elements that have kind of grown over the years of software and web development. I think style sheets are a part of that. There was a time where all the styles of code was embedded in font tags, and if another person created a new page, they would have to kind of guess on what the previous developer did, or they might have the diligence to look at what they did. And of course, it was hard to keep things consistently. So CSS style sheets came to the rescue, and this theoretically was supposed to be where maybe one style sheet would kind of enforce the style rules of all the tags that were made on HTML, and theoretically there would be this kind of cohesiveness and consistency. Well, as things grew, websites grew more complex, and there, are websites that could have hundreds of different CSS style sheets that are used. Maybe one team kind of has their own special style sheet. And so Facebook had an incident where they had if I don't quote me on this, but it was hundreds, I believe in the 300s of different kind of brand blues that people used because they were just dabbing certain colors and maybe they weren't accurate. And so these blues kind of look similar, and maybe some of them were eyeballed, but there was hundreds of these different blues. And so this shows that style sheets no longer was effective in kind of bringing in this consistency. And over the years, there's been things like code snippets where designers would just do their code thing, and it would kind of create these automatic libraries that developers could go to and copy snippets. And of course, these are still being used today. And in fact, all these technologies are part of modern design systems today. But what I want to say is that it's easy to think that a design system is merely, CSS with this, or it's merely kind of having on Figma a certain board with all these different components that are laid out that shows that there's different small, medium, large buttons. But what I want you to think about is a design system is a system at various levels. And so let's take a look at some definitions of the word system, and then we'll review certain phrases out of those definitions to give you a better, clear understanding of how a design system truly is a system. And it can be quite complex. The ideal standard is not to be complex for complexity's sake. So the first definition, I went to Google, by the way, and I checked out some other dictionaries, but Google, I really like the two definitions that they gave. So the first definition that they gave was a set of things working together as parts or of a mechanism of an interconnecting network. And so the phrase that I want you to kind of hold on to is working together as parts. In the second definition, they say a set of principles or procedures according to which something is done, an organized framework or method. And so the other words that I want to call your attention to is principles or procedures according to which something is done. And then the second one is an organized framework or method. So I'm going to break this video down by these kind of three phrases and give you some examples of how a design system has these kind of elements in it. At a UI level, of course, you have things like buttons and text and pictures and a lot of different components that they're used, navigational elements. Well, in a design system, there should be this discipline that you can put all these things together and it won't break. The visual spacing shouldn't get overly crowded when you put an image with a form field or text with a set of buttons. Everything should be able to work out in a way that's thought out holistically. There's a vertical rhythm, a horizontal spacing and padding, and the way that certain kind of form fields, how they fill up the space within grids. All these kind of things are thought out in a systematic and holistic way that everything's going to be compatible. Now, on the code level, the same thing. There's the same thought that it's going to be compatible. So the way your tags are labeled and the technologies that you're using won't conflict with the JS libraries that you're using. And different teams may have different JS frameworks. They may have different front ends and they may have different back ends. And in spite of all these things, there needs to be the discipline and thought around how do we make this a system that will work for all the different stakeholders, which are different dev teams. Another thing is on tools and processes. Not all your designers may be using Figma. Some may be using Sketch. There may be some good reasons why they can't get off of even Photoshop. Who knows? But whatever the case is, you need to have this kind of thought. If everyone's not using Figma, then can I expect this to be a system that everyone in the company can get the maximum benefit from? Finally, working together, there's people. Of course, we know there's designers, but not every designer is different. You have diversity of different functions of designers. Some are information architects that never do high fidelity design, but they should be able to get the benefit of the design system by knowing the patterns, understanding the language, the tone, sort of all the different things that bring in consistency with other systems that might be coming down the road. There's developers, and again, multiple developers, front end, back end developers. There's product teams with product owners. And something to keep in mind is even the websites might have a lot of diversity where one website might be very dense because there's experts who know shortcut keys and they want to have their pages somewhat crammed and efficient, and they want everything to be very tight. And then on the consumer front, for especially a first-time user, there might be a completely different need. And so there are even design systems that have tiers where at the parent level, there's the basic things such as colors and overarching things that make everything the same. And when you cascade down maybe different projects, they may have different specific needs, and they may roll up into sort of tiers that have commonalities. This might be a lot more complexity than your particular project needs, but this is this kind of systematic way of thinking of things. The next phrase that I want to go through is principles or procedures according to which something is done. So principles, they can involve the shared language, this common identity. It involves values. And principles are something that are very necessary to be a guide when there is conflict, when there's healthy debate on whether this should look more beautiful and simple or whether this form field should be more robust. There can be principles that are in place that can help guide the direction and even the future features that your design system is going to have. So a good example is Salesforce. They've got 4 words that they summarize their pillars of their design system, and that is clarity, efficiency, consistency, and beauty. So on clarity, they have eliminate ambiguity, enable people to see, understand, and act with confidence. For efficiency, it says streamline and optimize workflows, intelligently anticipate needs to help people work better, smarter, and faster. For consistency, they write, create familiarity and strengthen intuition by applying the same solution to the same problem. And then the fourth sort of pillar that they have is beauty. Demonstrate respect for people's time and attention through thoughtful and elegant craftsmanship. And so you can kind of see that these are things that you can continuously reflect back on. And as you're having discussions, these are the pillars that you're going to be reflecting on as you go through design system discussions. So the last phrase that I want to take you through is it's an organized framework or a method. I think there's a lot to borrow from software development. Software development has documentation, versioning, there's upgrades, there's deprecating. So with documentation, there can be documentation that really needs to be done for multiple audiences, multiple stakeholders. There's documentation for guiding principles, for the type of tone. There's specifics on grabbing code snippets. There's instructions for designers on maybe how to use certain patterns and when there is a best practice for not or using a certain kind of pattern. And just like software, there's versioning. You may have a team that has a lot of reticence about upgrading to a new version, and so they really want to make sure they're ready, and that's okay. And so this design system, because it's considering the part, it's considering the whole and not just one particular part, there is the respect that not everybody is going to be able to have to use the design system in the same absolute fashion as another team. And that's okay. But the main thing is that there's thought around this on how everyone's going to consume the design system. With upgrades and deprecating, there's ways to, phase out certain things that either they become dated or there's a better way of doing things. And that needs to be done gradually, because in the next versions, those things may not disappear, but it's alerted that it's deprecated. And then on the next version, it's listed, it's just not on the design system at all. So these are the kind of things that you want to be at least considering as you're creating a design system. So in conclusion, I hope this thought around looking at it as a system gives you some kind of big picture understanding of what a design system is and the levels of thinking that you want to have when you're creating a design system or you're participating with a design system. When I think about it, you could look at many different kind of systems and borrow and be inspired from those. And even if they aren't other design systems, things like Lego blocks and traffic systems and bodies that create standards, all these things in the world, they may be things that may give you inspiration on what you want to incorporate in your design system. So to summarize, we had these 3 phrases, and that's that a design system has things that are working together as parts. There's principles or procedures according to which something is done. And the third one is it's an organized framework or a method. So I hope these 3 phrases and looking at things from a systematic approach is something that helps you if you stuck it this far. Really appreciate this. If you do like this video, please like it. If you really like the channel, then please subscribe to the channel or leave a comment, which really helps the YouTube algorithm. So again, my name is Ken, and I'll see you on a future episode. Thanks.